Hello, everybody. I'm Candid Frank, Stanisci of Lacrosse Talk, NLL Talk as well. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV Channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, on Lacrosse Talk, NLL Talk as well. Joining me, of course, as usual, is my cohort here, Gary Groob. Gary, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great, Frank. It's a great day, and we have the commissioner on. What a great thing.
Yeah, we do. And our guest is Nick Sakeiwicz. He is the commissioner of the National Lacrosse League. Mr. Sakiewicz, Commissioner, it's a pleasure having you here. Please let me thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm sure you could have done many other things than be here.
Oh, no, it's great to be here. Thanks for the interest in the league, and thanks for your support. I wouldn't imagine being anywhere else right now.
You know, I think, we've been doing this show, as we talked prior to the program, about 8 years we've been doing it. And back before you were hired, there were a lot of questions about ownership. There were a lot of questions about television. There were a lot of questions, of course, about revenue, all those things. Then you came in, and it was radio silence, it seemed, for the first year or so. Maybe I wasn't listening closely enough, but it seemed like you weren't saying much. And I suspect, knowing your history, that you were doing something that a lot of people might not have had the, let's say, the temerity to do, which is not speak till you're sure what you knew, what you wanted to say and what you wanted to do. Am I far off the mark?
No, you're spot on. And actually, we don't know each other that well, but anyone that knows me knows I'm not a big talker, and I like to act, and I like to do things. You know, my time in Major League Soccer, I have a storage full of gold shovels and trophies and all sorts of stuff. And talk doesn't matter. Talk is cheap, especially when you take over a league that has just kind of hung around for 30 years. And the good news is it didn't fail, and the bad news is it hadn't grown. So I felt that the actions were more important. So during that silent time, Frank, I was really building a plan and figuring out, getting our what together, and figuring out a plan on how to take this incredible sport with these amazing athletes and just unlock it to the world, and not just hibernate it inside arenas like it had sat for 30 years.
You know for a fact that there are a lot of people out there who give a what about this sport and this game. Is that one of the things that attracted you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was being courted and recruited by the search committee of the NLL, they took me to a couple of games, and I was just blown away by the quality, the athleticism, the world class. I'll never forget, I asked to go into the locker room because I came from a sport where our athletes were 24/7, full-time, always, working out, training. And you always can tell what an athlete's like when he takes his shirt off, right? And when I went in that locker room, I was blown away at how ripped these guys were and how professional and totally professional they were. And then the crowds that came, they were so passionate about the play and what was going on the floor. I felt this was ticket sellable, and it absolutely is. Some of our teams draw amazing crowds and do really well. So I knew that we can grow this thing.
So it was a partnership that you saw. There was a giant upside. You saw the possibility, because the biggest thing about doing the job that you do, the biggest job that you do, is the fact that you have to identify, what you're going to work with, and sort of figure out what it's going to look like down the road. How predictable has that been? You've done a great job of bringing in franchise. This is the only league that has grown as fast as it has prior to the pandemic and during the pandemic yet.
Yeah, I think it's all about, it starts with having quality people at every level. And it starts with quality owners, and then having quality people at the team operations and at the league operations. And we needed to get that done first. So during that kind of radio silent time, we were building and recruiting great people and good staff. And then, so it starts with people, and then it goes to empowering those people to put a plan together, a strategic plan, not just for this weekend or this season, but a short, medium, and long range strategic plan. And we did that in the first 6 months back in 2016 during that time. And then we rolled into the 2017 season. And the third most important component is execution of that plan. And so the beginning of the 2017 season, we started to execute on that plan. And that plan covered areas like expansion. We needed more teams. We had 9 teams. 2 of them were pretty weak. So it was, arguably the league was 9 teams going to 7, not 9 teams going to 15. And we had to reverse that trend. So we focused on expansion. We had no commercial business to speak of. It was teeny tiny, and we needed to establish it, and we did. And we got some good momentum. Thanks to COVID, we lost that momentum in commercial partnerships. But knowing what's lined up for this coming season, we're really excited about getting that business back. And then television broadcast. There was no strategy. There was no, there was in the advent of over-the-top streaming platforms and the television landscape changing and shifting. The NLL was not prepared to attack that marketplace in that industry and had no broadcast plan. So we put those things in place. Our teams needed help selling tickets and commercializing themselves at the local level. So the league created a team services function internally to assist those teams and to help those teams do better in their local markets. And that was really important. So that was really the real basic pillars of a strategic plan, short, medium, and long term. And what you see today is a league that went from 9 teams to 15. We've grown revenue by 711% over the last 5 years versus the previous 5 years. We've got broadcast deals with TSN that's going to feature a game of the week every weekend throughout our season this year, and 100% of our games streamed live on TSN Go. We have a similar deal, which we're not ready to announce, but we've shook hands on last week here in the United States. It's going to be very exciting, similar type of deal here in the United States. So we'll have an unprecedented amount of distribution of all of NLL's games, playoffs, and championship. And that's what we've done in 5 years. Having said all that, we got the next strategic plan coming, which is going to be even more exciting and more dynamic.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay. Well, you did so much dragging the league into the 21st century, because the old days, like you were saying, the owners had a carpet, an arena, that was it. And now you've done so many different things to increase revenue streams, so it's very attractive to get new ownership, blue chip ownership, into the league. Talk a little bit about your MO in vetting a new owner. What would have to be for you to even consider them to come into the league?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gary. It's there's a number of boxes to check. First and foremost, what does blue chip mean? Blue chip means an owner that has the level of resources to be able to invest in a sports lacrosse operation in a local marketplace. Those resources could include money. Those resources could include an arena. Those resources could include other sports operations that they own. So there's a multitude of resources that we tick the box on and qualify an owner as being blue chip. The other component we look for is passion for lacrosse, passion for our league, and buy into what our long-term plan is. We're a very different league today than we were 5 years ago. I think the league, for the most part, wanted to survive 5 years ago. Today, we're in a much different mindset. We want to continue to invest in our players, invest in our product, invest in our infrastructure. We have a lot of our teams now that are looking at lacrosse businesses in their local communities to teach young kids how to play lacrosse, because that's the next generation of fan. That's the next generation of player. So we look for owners with those resources and the commitment to invest those resources into growing their local NLL team in a particular market. That's really important. Those are the boxes that we tick. And then if we, tick most of those boxes, then we know we have what we call a blue chip owner for the NLL.
Yeah, Vegas is a good example. Wayne Gretzky's involved. Many people don't know that he was a big lacrosse player. So your passion is there, I guess, and the finances as well. But you got to have both, and that has been, from my perspective, that has been the biggest success that you've had. Is that it's one thing to be committed but it's to actually, you know, use that word execution. You know, you can have owners that say they can do stuff. Your job as the commissioner is to ensure that they can execute the plan that you have. How difficult has that been?
That's the hardest part. You know, listen, you guys know it's easy to talk a good game in sports, but it's another thing to act on. And what I love about Wayne and getting to know Wayne is I know why he is the greatest hockey player ever, because he is authentic and real. And you won't find too many passionate lacrosse owners more passionate than Wayne Gretzky. I mean, he told me the whole story of why and how he played lacrosse and how it really helped him become one of the great hockey players in the world, and the elements of box lacrosse as it connected to the game of hockey. And that authenticity is really important. And it's hard. It's hard to execute on. A lot of people can write a plan. A lot of people can say nice words and get up in a press conference and speak well. But it's another to be able to show trophies. And I don't mean just championship trophies. I mean those trophies behind me are gold sticks from every new team that came into our league and some existing teams that were purchased and made better, like our Vancouver Warriors that are now under the Aquilini family's management. You know, these are the type of accomplishments that are really, really hard to get and execute on. And I'm proud of the team here at the league office and our board and our owners. And it's a collective effort. It takes everybody to pull and row in the right direction. But when you get that alignment with owners, with management, with the league, with the teams, you can do anything.
The symbiosis between hockey and lacrosse is obviously clear. It isn't subtle. You have a lot of your franchises, whether it be north or south of the border, are connected to hockey teams. You just mentioned Aquilini, who happens to own the Vancouver Canucks. So, you know, there's that connection as well. How important is it that I know that it's important to have arenas that are owned by the team so they can set their own schedule and they become in essence, a primary tenant. How important is that? Speak to that symbiotic relationship.
I mean, we have two different types of models. We have owners that own their arenas, and that's great, and that's symbiotic. But we also have found a way to put owners that don't own those arenas and make them partners of the people who own those arenas. We did that in Halifax with the Thunderbirds. They have an amazing partnership with the city of Halifax, who owns Scotiabank Arena, and there's symbiosis there and good energy and good partnership there. The NLL didn't always have that, and that's why we were in a lot of cities that didn't work out, because our teams and those owners were put in bad situations with arenas where they just rented the arenas and they didn't have a true financial partnership, and they weren't leveraging each other's strengths. And so we have two models. We have an owned and operated model, which is teams like our 5 NHL teams that own arenas and manage those teams in those arenas. And then we have an independent model. But in that independent model, it's crucial to not allow those owners to step into those arenas with bad arena deals. That happened in the past. It doesn't happen anymore in the NLL.
Happened here in Toronto.
It did.
Yeah, it did. It did. And part of the reason, you know, why that team is now playing at the First Ontario Center is because they have a real opportunity to make money and be profitable in that arena. And, you know, we did it in Albany as well. That Albany Firewolves team is going to be an anchor tenant in a 13,000 seat world-class arena in downtown Albany. And they'll have access to the economics to be able to make a lot of money, and which is important for sustainability.
Yeah, because the Rock one was looking a lot like the Boston Blazers of old, with no other revenue streams coming in other than ticket sales.
Same issue with the Blazers. I looked at that team. That team drew good numbers. They couldn't make money playing under the type of arena deal that they had there. So that team didn't last. And that just is bad for the fans. It's bad for the league. It's bad for the sport. We will not let an owner step into an arena unless we vet that arena deal and make sure that that arena deal is realistic and gives the owner a chance to make money in there.
That creates an interesting question on my part. It also means that the ownership group that you entertain within the organization has to be willing to listen as well, because some owners have the reputation of not being willing to listen. I'm not saying you have any. I'm just saying.
Well, Frank, you guessed one of the boxes to tick on that list. Getting owner. My mom always used to say, "God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth."
It's pretty tough. Yeah, no, we talk about the Toronto Rock because here in Toronto, it's a big city. There aren't many big cities. Is it a function of what you realize, maybe because you can't sell 20,000 seats for the most part, that you're better off to be in a mid-range town as opposed to a big city?
No, we have success in both big cities and small cities, from 15,000 fans in Saskatchewan and Saskatoon, a small marketplace where people drive 4 hours one way to get to a Rush game, or a city like Halifax, also a little bit bigger, but when you went to games there at the end of their first season, it was selling out and rabid. And then we have success in a market like Denver or Colorado Mammoth. That team averages close to 14,000 a game and plays in a big NHL and NBA arena. Our Philadelphia Wings down here, same thing, big NHL arena with an NBA team playing there. The Wings draw great crowds, over 10,000 a game. So it's about operations. It's about that owner that has a commitment to those operations: ticket sales, sponsorship, fan engagement, marketing, social media, all those aspects that makes a professional team really rock and engage with the community. That's what it's all about. Where we see failure is where we see an owner that maybe isn't as committed to those things and isn't or doesn't have the people, right, with the experience and the talent and the know-how on how to sell those seats and get people in the stadium and get them to come back.
There's that word again, execution.
Execution.
But a lot of this comes down to your character too, of being fair, being just. In the past, I take a look at the CBAs, the bargaining agreements, and they've been wars, absolute wars between ownership, players, the league itself, and it almost shut the league down a couple of times. Under your tutelage, that first CBA that you put in was nothing but growth. Everybody was happy on both sides. The players are making more. They're going to be making more. The owners are making more. How is the CBA in itself? It's a must, right? A long-term CBA in order to get expansion, TV, things like that.
The way I look at CBAs, and by the way, in my last year of playing soccer, I was the player rep for my team in Tampa. So I completely know where those guys are coming from, and I actually sat in their shoes, in their seat. The CBA, the relationship between players and the league, it's a marriage you can't get a divorce from. There's no option. We have to work together, especially in a league like the NLL, where we are building this league brick by brick. And to think that we can do it without the players at the league level, or the players to think they can do it without the league being healthy and thriving and doing well, is about the most naive thing you can think about. We have to work. We have to be partners. Look, we think if we're in a position where our players are making more money, that means the league should be flourishing.
Right.
And we just need to figure out that formula where we can grow together. The league grows, the boats rise, players make more money, executives make more money, owners make more money. That's a good thing. And so we have to work together to figure that out. Fighting about it, arguing over it, making lawyers rich over it makes no sense at all to me. It makes no sense. And the worst thing about it is when that happens, who are the biggest losers? The fans. The fans are the biggest losers. And in some cases, the players. Like my last year of playing soccer in 1990, soccer was out of business in 1990. It was pre-MLS. And I had to retire at 29 in the middle of my career because I couldn't make a living playing the sport. So because they were fighting. The league's management and players association was fighting. So we won't take it in that direction. And we have great leadership now at the NLLPA. They changed their name. Kudos to them. Zach Currier and Reed Reinhold are the new leaders of the NLLPA. And we're really excited to be working with them to figure out how we can work together to grow this league and elevate all aspects of it.
It's important when a players association is working with a league that is successful and doesn't have, some of the fissures in their organization, so that the players sometimes may tend, or at least the PA sometimes may think they have some answers. If you take care of your side and they take care of their side, everybody wins. Yeah,
no question. Like the players, they're the product. They're the most important thing. They're what the fans come to see, and why the fans want to come see them. We have to take care of that, and that's our responsibility. But we also have a responsibility to run our league financially prudently so that we're around for the next 100 years. The NLL is 35 years old now. We have a long way to go before we're 100 years old, like the other leagues, like the NHL and the NFL. But I'm not going to be here to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the NLL.
Don't bet on it. Don't
make it
on
it. We had better do a good job in our moment in time when we're caretaking this league to make sure that it even has a chance to get there.
Yeah, you've done it. What you've done, it's really difficult because I'm struggling. I've been struggling to find a negative question to ask you. I'm really disappointed in you. And if there's one thing I can say that disappoints me, is I don't have a negative question that I can ask you. And God knows
you don't know what I know. If you knew what I know, you'd have a question.
Okay. All kidding aside, you do have players that play a lot of lacrosse. I mean, you're involved in a sport unlike any other sport. I know players, they work really hard during the off season, but lacrosse is probably the only sport I know of that there is literally, I mean, not just figuratively, literally no off season.
Yeah, look, it's a lifestyle sport. They play. Yeah, I'm blown away at how fit and how athletic our guys are, and they train every day. They are committed to the sport. It's a lifestyle sport. It's not a job. It's a vocation, and I didn't play lacrosse. I played soccer, but it was the same setup. Like, we didn't play for the money or the paycheck. We played for the love of the game, and we just showed up every weekend and every day at practice. And it was the life we led. And that was probably the most fun time of my lifetime. And I'm sure the lacrosse players will say the same thing. And it's a lifestyle sport. It's truly a lifestyle sport.
I'll give Gary the next question, but first I just want to remind everybody who's just watching right now, we're with the commissioner, Nick Sakeiwicz of the National Lacrosse League, and we have a lot to talk about, and he's not a very talkative guy, but for a guy who's not very talkative, he's had a lot to say so far. Gary.
You guys are easy to talk to.
I appreciate that.
Good.
Now, we were talking about checking boxes on the owners. A lot of the newer teams that have come in have developed programs for youth, developed 101 programs to get people who don't know anything about the game to know the game. Is that something that the league is behind, or is that just on their own?
Very much supportive of all of that activity, and we can't support it more. We've put some there's only so much we can do because we're here in Philadelphia, and we don't own a team, and we don't execute in a marketplace, but what we can do is support teams with ideas and best practices. One of the things we really try to encourage is teams starting local grassroots lacrosse development business, whether it's developing young kids at the rec level or programming more elite level high performance lacrosse, to camps, to clinics, to refereeing development, to coaching development. And it's different, right? It's different from what the Toronto Rock do in Oakville in a matured marketplace like Toronto and Ontario, to what John Arlotta may be doing down in Georgia with the Georgia Swarm. It's developing the sport at a more basic level down there and getting sticks in kids' hands and developing it. But there's a great business to be had there as well. There's no secret. Parents will spend a lot of money to get their kids playing and to get their kids off the couch and active. And if you provide a really good product in a local marketplace that's branded with the local team, there's quite a business. I did that here in Philadelphia. One of the first things we did was we started the Philadelphia Union Youth Academy, and it turned into a multi-million-dollar business. And thousands of kids graduated from those programs, and Some of them actually found their way onto the field with professional team, but the vast majority of them became fans as they grew up over the years. They became season ticket holders and fans, and it's just good community. It's good marketing. It's good business. It's good all the way around. And we create templates for our teams to be able to go into the marketplace and start a lacrosse business.
But you're also helping yourself in the league, right? Because as you expand teams, you're going to need more savvy players as well. We don't want to water down the product as, putting in 21, 22, 23 teams. We have to have that build of players. So you're helping your own situation out by doing this.
Gary, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you train thousands of 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 15-year-olds, some of them are going to trickle out into becoming elite players. If you do your job really well, then more than one will trickle out. You'll have a pipeline. And this is what happens in every sport, in basketball and international soccer and lacrosse. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you invest in your local community and you develop players locally, guess what you're going to have eventually? If you do it right, you're going to have a great talent pool coming up through the pipeline, and passionate kids who grow up in the local marketplace wanting to play for the local team. It's nothing better than that.
On that subject, we've had a lot of guests, former referees, even the head of the National Lacrosse League referee. We've had coaches, general managers, and one of the common things that they talk about is how willing is the NLL to take the mantle of creating a rule base that's consistent as possible from the youngest to the pros.
We're trying. Brian Lemon, our EVP of lacrosse operation, leads what we call a grassroots development program. And we sign collaboration agreements. We've signed a bunch of them here in the U.S. We just signed a couple new ones in Ontario with the Ontario Junior Lacrosse League and the Tewarton League. That's just a new startup league. Different agreements. They're just running a combine, but with the new commissioner, Mark Grimes of the OJLL, we're developing a program to really collaborate with them and to support them and to develop great programs to develop youth. It's nothing more important than that. And so Brian leads the development of those deals, and really it's such an important long-term strategy, Frank and Gary, because without it, our fan base will go away, will shrivel up, will decrease in size, and we just have to keep bringing more kids into the pipeline and into the ecosystem.
Yeah, you have to be very aware of what's going on among, that ecosystem that you're referring to. You have to be aware of what's going on in it. You have to pay attention. I'm glad you are, because that's really important. It's one of the things that we talk about here all the time, and we hear from the experts and people who are involved that they really want the game to be better. And it's the same thing, I guess, with the relationship you have with the players. It's also the relationship you have with the game itself, right?
No question. Those kids playing the game and the fans that come to our arenas, that they are the sport. That's the heart and soul of any sport. It's the fans. And unfortunately, like in modern professional sports and big money leagues, sometimes the fans are forgotten. Sometimes the players are forgotten. And that's one of the things that attracted me to the National Lacrosse League. And we had a great situation, and our friends over at the Toronto FC do a great job of connecting, and that's what I loved about soccer. And I saw that in lacrosse, and we haven't forgotten the fans, and we haven't forgotten the players. And as long as I'm going to be here, commissioner, I'm going to make sure we don't forget about those folks. And of course, our media. We can't forget.
I'm just going to text that to Bill Manning right now to let him know how you feel.
and of course, our media. We'll never forget our media.
Well, I'm surely very happy about that. We love the game here, and we want to see it grow. Yes, on one hand, it's too bad. Gary's a season ticket holder for the Toronto Rock. They move to Hamilton, and I didn't joke with Gary, but soon after that happened, I was curious as to, hey, Gary, what if the NLL moved the team, let's say, into Oshawa? I mean, there's not a bigger hotbed. Would you be willing to look at another market in Ontario, or do you think we've got enough franchises? Are you entertaining any ideas of maybe moving a team to the east side of Toronto?
No, right now the Rock are our team in the Greater Toronto metropolitan area, and they play in Hamilton, and we don't have any plans or desire. Look, we have over 12 cities and 15 investors right now talking to us about Team 16. It didn't hurt that Wayne Gretzky got up with Dustin Johnson and Joe Ty and Steve Nash and say they're investing in the National Lacrosse League, and all of a sudden my phone started ringing, which was nice because it wasn't ringing before then. I was doing mostly outbound calls. So we got more than enough work to do. We have other cities to expand into in Canada. I truly believe Montreal, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Edmonton are all cities that we should be in someday. Mm-hmm. And so we're focused on that right now. And look, we got to support the Toronto Rock and Jamie Dowick, the great owner there, who we need to make them as successful as they possibly can be.
I just wanted to ask that question because of the way Peterborough's close to there, and they are like, basically the capital of lacrosse, at least one of the capitals here in Canada anyway. The other thing that with franchise movement, the NLL is as much as I think, I'm trying to remember now, Gary, did Georgia happen before Vegas? I think it did. Georgia happened before Vegas, right?
Georgia happened before I got here.
Minnesota went to Georgia, yes.
And they started that trend of taking a team that won a championship or will win a championship, a really good team, and brought it to Georgia. How important is success by a new franchise on the floor? I mean, as well as at the ticket office.
It's really important. I think the Las Vegas Golden Knights taught the sports world that having a successful expansion team out of the gate or a new team in the marketplace is really important, because you only get one inaugural year. You only get one chance to make a first impression in a marketplace. And the first year is arguably the most important year. The team needs to at least make the playoffs in the first year and be competitive on the floor. So that's, critical. But, it's also, we relocate franchise because of the arena situation. Mm-hmm. Luckily I didn't inherit Georgia's problems in Minnesota, the Swarm's problems in Minnesota, but that team moved because it had an onerous arena deal. Our team in New England that we sold this year during the COVID and moved it to Albany was all about an owner that, got into some difficulty and didn't want the team anymore and played in a really, not a great arena situation. So we put it in a place where it's outstanding now. That was the case with Halifax when Kurt Stiers was allowed to move his Rochester team to Halifax. We put that team in a very good business situation where it's sustainable, and that team can flourish there for many decades to come. So when you see over the last 5 years, when you've seen new owners come in or teams being relocated, it's really because the business operations aren't sustainable under that current situation.
Was it an easy sell? Is it an easy sell to ensure that a new team will be better than the teams that exist from the other owner's perspective? How big a sell is that?
Well, when you show them, you have to make the business case, right? When you show them the arena, the new arena deal, the opportunity to make money, to be sustainable, a fan base that will support the team in a new marketplace, you have to make the case. And if you make the case properly, then generally it's pretty easy.
So the high tide principle.
Yeah, absolutely. Make things better and bigger. When you have a team that's suffering in an arena and a marketplace that doesn't support it, usually it's pretty easy to convince a board to, correct the situation and make it better. And that's what we've done. We have strong owners in Vancouver now where we didn't before. We have an amazing situation with an unbelievable ownership group in Albany now, where we were in Uncasville, Connecticut. No pro team should be in Uncasville, Connecticut, in my opinion. So it's really important to make sure our teams are on really good footing, and we're good now, A to Z. We're good.
Now, you're the first league that I know of that really took into account the Generation Y, Generation Z idea and the digital platforms and using that tool. And in a sense, you help also by having all these teams upgrade their in-house broadcasts, because some of them before were absolutely deplorable to try and watch. And you had them change everything into HD so it'd be easier when you did get the TV contracts to get everything in there. Now, your first foray into getting a game of the week was using Twitter, and that went over really, really well. And I had been a proponent forever, screaming that we needed to have something somewhere that we could show everybody to convert it. Yeah.
No, you make a great point. So for the NLL, like we couldn't just come in 5 years ago and turn the lights on and boom, all of a sudden we're on prime time on ESPN2 or TSN1. We had to evolve to that. So what our first plan was we created NLL TV. We did it our own OTT platform just to see if people would watch us on TV. And then we did a game on Twitter in front of the paywall, and we did a game on Facebook in front of the paywall to see what kind of numbers would generate. Those 2 years led to a deal with BR Live and Turner.
Right.
And that broadened it a little bit more, and we got paid a little bit of money, and we had what I term as a first stage TV deal. If you thought that was great, wait till you see what's coming now with TSN. The game of the week on TSN linear platform and all the streaming on TSN Go is going to be off the charts, fantastic, very exciting for the fans. They're going to be able to access NLL, every NLL game, anytime, anywhere. And then we'll have a featured game of the week in Canada. We're going to do something similar in the US. I can't say who the broadcast partner is going to be, but because we're not ready to do that yet, but it's going to be very similar. So this deal coming into this new season is what I term as a second stage deal. And we'll grow it from there and build it out from there and get bigger and bigger as we go. And that's the important thing for a league like ours. It's not about the deal today. It's about what the next deal looks like and what the next deal after that looks like. And we keep expanding.
You have done a great job of that, obviously. Like Gary was saying about the quality of the game, the visuals. What other things are you looking at to improve the visuals of the game? Are you having any input with TSN and whatever network? I'm assuming the Peacock will get involved with you guys, input into how they broadcast, because lacrosse is a little different. They have music while the game's going on. So there's some differences that lacrosse has as far as the fan engagement with the game.
Well, that's what TSN loved about our pitch, is our ability and our innovation and willingness to do things like miking players and referees and taking a peek in when a goal is being adjudicated at the sideline with the referees, or a goal cam. We tested and played around with that in the season before COVID hit, and we were playing around with the goal cam technology. And we actually have a goal supplier now that is building cameras into the goal to give different views and different pictures. There's all sorts of technologies for insertion and in-screen technology, adaptation to sports betting. Sports betting is now becoming really big in both Canada and the United States, and it's coming. So how do we use technology for integrations to give fans a better experience, the fans that want to watch and bet? So we're going to be doing those things in partnership with TSN and with our partner here in the United States. And those broadcasters were really excited about our openness to innovate that way and to be able to do different things and use different technologies. So it helped to be open-minded with that, because the broadcast partners really want to do that and bring new engagement to the fans. And that's just good for the game and good for the fans.
There's part of the game that you have to give in because of gambling, when it comes to injuries and such things. How do you feel about the I'll use that word again, that symbiotic relationship between the NLL and, of course, gambling organizations or opportunities?
Well, sports betting is exploding across the continent. It's pretty, it's been around a long time in Europe and in other parts of the world. It's almost, part embedded in the game in Europe, but it's going to happen. Now I think there's over 20 states in the US that have online gaming, and Canada, there's legislation in the Canadian government that's moving in that direction as well. So it's not if, but when, and we just need to be a league that's prepared for the when and make sure we have all of our integrity systems in place to make sure that the game stays clean. We have all of our broadcast technologies and in-arena technologies in place to make sure we can facilitate it for the fans so we give them a good experience. And then we have to have really good partners. BetMGM has been a great partner of ours the past couple of years, and they've really helped us put our platform and all our systems in place to make sure that we can launch it. We were going to launch it during the playoffs, heading into the playoffs when COVID hit, and then that didn't happen. We were going to launch it this year. That didn't happen because of the COVID, and so we're ready in December. We'll be rolling out our sports betting platform.
Miss the days when all that mattered were people buying tickets. Now all the different cash ways of streaming money. There are so many different avenues. So we've got the gambling, we've got the tickets, we've got the TV. What else can we look forward to? What other streams of money do you have that you can tap into?
Well, we signed a new deal with Fanatics in the off season back in November, and we have our own fanatics.ca site up. It's extraordinary. It's really proud of it. We worked really hard in December and January to build it out, and we launched it. So for access for merchandise on all the 5 Canadian teams, it's going to be really easy. Go to Fanatics, NLLfanatics.com or .ca rather, and it's all the merchandise is up. It's a great site. Going to be very easy for fans to access merchandise, and that's a new revenue stream for the NLL. The NLL never had an e-commerce business, and so now we have that in the U.S. and in Canada. And I think for this next 5-year plan, we're going to stick to our knitting. We're going to focus on those things: expansion, growing attendance in our local marketplaces, adding more teams, growing attendance, growing viewership. Now with TSN, they're a long-term partner for the next 3 seasons, and the same in the U.S., just focusing in on growing the viewership and continuing to build our commercial partners and add more non-endemics. Companies like Alterna Bank, we're a great partner, will be coming back this year and bringing more sponsors into the space, and promoting and growing the sport of lacrosse is going to be a big focus of ours going into this next 5-year strategic plan. So a little bit more.
I'm sorry. Like for example, the draft. You made some really interesting moves with the draft and its presentation.
Yeah, well, the draft has become a show, a live made-for-TV show, and we're going to continue and invest. It's the one tentpole event that the league has, and it's an important day. We relaunched the Hall of Fame as well. We're going to have our new Hall of Fame celebration here at the end of August. And inductees of our new inductees into the Hall of Fame. So we've reignited that as well. The Hall of Fame will be tied in with the draft, and it'll be a weekend event now on Friday night and Saturday, the draft. And we'll be televising it. And we're going to have some great news on the draft from a television standpoint with regards to our 2 new partners televising the draft.
Now, we had some big news over the last week with, of course, with the Olympics. What are your thoughts on the IOC and lacrosse getting together as full membership?
Very excited about that. That's a game changer for the sport. And we've been working very closely with Jim and Daryl over at World Lacrosse to help support that effort every way that the NLL can. And we couldn't be more excited about their success of getting that official recognition by the IOC. And the discipline that they've come up with called sixes. It looks a lot like our sport. It's 5 runners and a goalie, and we're really excited about that opportunity to really begin to connect and galvanize the field game and the indoor box game in and around the Olympic sport of sixes. And the one thing I noticed when I first came to lacrosse is it was highly fragmented. It was box over here and field over here and youth over here. And there was all these little, and there were 2 professional outdoor leagues, and there was the NCAAs, and everybody was all in their own silo. But what's starting to happen, and we're very proud of the fact that we're trying to lead a galvanization of the sport, bringing all these silos together and really collaborating and bringing them together to make the sport bigger and grow. That's what happened in soccer in North America. Same thing. It was fragmented beyond belief in the 80s. And over time, it came together. And now it's massive sport in North America. This will happen in lacrosse if we're able to defragment and bring all these constituencies together and get everybody to play nice in the sandbox.
And
you have a good tie too with Joe Tsai and his connection with the Premier Lacrosse League. So
now
you guys work together.
With Joe and the new ownership group in Albany, we have all the biggest investors of the PLL also invested in the NLL, and that's again bringing the sport together, bringing the investors together, bringing the sponsors together, and all the different disciplines. The work that we're doing with the youth leagues in Canada and the US and creating these collaboration agreements is all designed to bring the sport together.
You also have the privilege of having a sport that began, Native Americans, Aboriginal Canadians, and that began with them. It's a sport that they invented that we picked up. Your relationship with those communities, how are they going?
Great. If you remember, one of the very first things the National Lacrosse League did was it redesigned our badge, our logo. Yep. And that logo was designed around the indigenous symbol for hope and guidance called the Morning Star. And there's there's 2 stars in the center of the NLL logo. One of them's the Morning Star, which is the indigenous symbol for hope and guidance. And the other outer star is 4 points for the original 4 teams of the National Lacrosse League. And that star really points to everything we do and recognizes the roots of the game and the indigenous population and all the work that we do with them. And we're very proud of that. And we point to it and we talk about it every day.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay. We talked briefly about the vision, your vision for the future. Really, what's their next step? What's the next step that we can sit back and expect?
It's not about the next step. It's about the next series of steps more than anything. There's no one moment in time that you say, oh, this was the pivot point for the league or this was the pivot point for the sport. But it's being consistent and taking one step and making sure you have another step after that. But candidly, I talked about the strategic plan and the 5 points of our strategic plan, and we're going to stick to those, and we're going to focus on those, and we're going to be very good at every one of them. And they are expanding the league. We need to get to 30, 32 teams someday and doing it in a very logical way. And that's going to take a 15-year period, maybe a 20-year period to do it in the right way. That's a long time. That's a generation of people and kids. We're going to focus on commercial sponsors and partners and making sure we get the Cokes and the Pepsis and the Geicos and the Alternas and the TDs and those types of brands to support the league and help us grow the game together. So that's a big focus. Growing attendance. We need more fans in our stands. We need more butts and seats and more outreach, and that's on our teams. Our teams have to do a really good job of engaging and being part of their local communities. So we're going to focus very heavily on that. We're going to focus on new innovations, new TV deals. We're going to have 2 amazing partners now that I think we're going to be set up well for the long term with these 2 partners. I mean, TSN is the biggest brand in Canada, and our new partner in the US is one of the biggest broadcast brands in the US. And we've got to roll up our sleeves now, and it's the actions and the plans behind them. So it's keeping our nose to the grindstone of those key strategies and making sure that we focus on them and not getting distracted with this or with that, And the last pillar is our players, our CBA. We want a long-term partnership with our players. We want a 10-year deal with our players, and we want to lock arms with them for the next 10 years and really build and scale this league out so that our players someday are full-time athletes and they don't have to worry about working 9 to 5 at some other job. They can make a living playing lacrosse.
Commissioner, this is the first time I have to disagree with you. I think you'll have one of the biggest challenges you have is filling the seats with bums, because quite frankly, none of them use the seat. They all seem to be sitting on the edge of their seat. That's probably
jumping.
Why?
That's the NLL. Yeah,
but it sounds a lot like the NHL of years ago, and how they built and grew and moved basically from part-time to full-time to having the TV deals to being the force that they are now. It looks like it's in the same direction.
It's deja vu. It's deja vu. It really reminds me. The NLL reminds me a little bit of the NHL and a little bit of soccer's growth in the U.S. in the 80s and 90s, and it's a bubble up. Kids are playing it. It's growing. There's a lot of wind in our sail because kids are playing it, and boys and girls equally, and men and women are playing it. So we got to take advantage of that and stick to the basics and really stick and focus to the basics for the next period of time, and it's going to be great. And I couldn't agree with you more, Frank. It's an edge of your seat game, 2 hours, sensory overload, 25, 30 goals a game, 80 to 100 shots on goal. I cannot wait for December 3rd.
It's going to be fun when it comes back. Anything special planned for the return of National Lacrosse League games?
Yeah, TSN Game of the Week. That's special. That's going to be a big day. We're really looking forward to that. I'm coming to Toronto soon, hopefully the end of this month, to meet with our partners at TSN and really start to plan that special day. It's going to be awesome to see the National Lacrosse League Game of the Week on TSN on that day.
It helps as well that the game has grown as far as franchises here in Canada as well for TSN to come on board.
Yeah, five teams in Canada. Our franchise values have grown 11.5 times over the last 5 years. It's a great time to invest in the NLL because it's going to grow another 11.5 times over the next 5 years, and there's going to be more teams. And TSN is going to help us increase that value for sure.
Well, TSN and Bill, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, we can be a 7-8 team league in Canada. There's no question about it. We should.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, TSN and Bill Manning wish that they could have teams across Canada from west to east. They're trying to do that in the CFL. That's a big game for me. That's one sport that I love a lot. And it's always been a symbiotic relationship between those two sports here in Canada anyway. The football fans, the CFL football fans, many of them are lacrosse fans. And because one league begins, the other one ends, or one ends and the other one begins. It's just a constant cycle where fans don't have to miss any games of either league because one begins and one ends. So there's that relationship as well.
Well, no question about it. Well, we're looking forward to being the newbies on the block on TSN. That's for sure.
I'm sure it'll be a great success. Well, we've only got a couple of minutes left. What did we leave out that you want people out there to know about the National Lacrosse League?
I don't know. You guys covered a lot. Well, good. And no real tough questions. And no real tough questions.
The opening weekend, is there going to be anything that's glitz and glamour that we're back, or is it just business as usual?
Yeah, well, we'll make some announcements. I don't want to spill all the beans right now. There's still 4 months or so to go to opening night, so we can't say everything here, but we'll have a few announcements leading up to it, and the draft will be great. It'll be televised as well, and we'll induct some new Hall of Famers, so that'll be fun. But we have a few things that I can't talk about everything because my communications department will beat me over the head for spilling the beans.
Mr. Commissioner, call me when you have some news. Listen,
Absolutely.
I really appreciate the time you spent with us. You're very kind and generous.
Well, thanks for your interest and your support, and I love the lacrosse sticks on the wall, and that's awesome. I got to come visit you guys when I'm in Toronto. I can't wait.
Be our pleasure.
Yeah, I miss the city. I really miss it.
Well, thank you, sir. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking your time.
You bet. Cheers.
Gary, thanks a lot as usual.
Thank you, Frank. It was wonderful.
Okay, for the commissioner and Gary Groob, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Lacrosse Talk, NLL Talk. Seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for Lacrosse Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you for watching, everybody. See you next Thursday at 4.